Are you looking for some new recipes to take your Thanksgiving dinner to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Today I've got for you 5 comforting dishes that you and your family are going to love. I am British, so technically I've never had a Thanksgiving dinner, so don't come at me if none of this is particularly traditional. But we do have a roast dinner every Sunday, and we of course have Christmas dinner, so it's safe to say that I do have some experience. Oh, and just quickly, if you're new here, I post a new plant-based recipe or cooking video every Wednesday and Sunday, so be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out. Okay, let's start with the centerpiece. I think that makes sense. We're going to make a whole roasted cauliflower with a herby mustard crust. This is so delicious and a lot easier than you might imagine, so let me show you how it's done. Okay, first things first, we're going to prepare the cauliflower. And this is really simple. We're simply going to remove the outer leaves. And to do this, just go to the bottom of the cauliflower, and then you're going to move your knife about maybe ½ an inch up the cauliflower and just sort of cut in like so. Pull on this and it's going to remove most of the leaves. I won't throw away these leaves. I'll keep them for a stir fry, or you can air fry them and make them really crispy and dip them in hummus. That's really tasty. I'm definitely going to do a video all about cauliflower soon and some delicious ways of cooking it. And then the last leaves you can just sort of pick off really easily. I've just brought a pan of water to the boil, and I'm going to add a nice pinch of sea salt, and then just carefully dunk your cauliflower in, and we'll cook that for about 5-8 minutes. I like to blanch the cauliflower first before roasting it, just to speed up the cooking time. That's had 8 minutes, and I'm just going to grab it out and put it onto a baking tray. So I've actually decided I'm going to air fry this cauliflower, so I've just got it on the air fryer crisper tray, and we're going to add a little drizzle of olive oil over the top. And then get yourself a pastry brush and just give that a good brush around so that it's all nice and coated. Now, I wasn't actually planning on doing this, but I'm also going to brush over about maybe 2/3 of a teaspoon of marmite, which I think is going to add a really lovely sort of umami layer onto the cauliflower before the herby crust, which we'll put on a bit later once it's been roasting for a little bit. Get that into all the nooks and crannies. Blanching it first means that this is all going to absorb nicely into the cauliflower. And then we can just pop that into the air fryer. While the cauliflower roasts, we'll get on with the herby mustardy crust, and that's going to start off with a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. This is whole grain. And to that, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise. This is, of course, a plant-based mayonnaise that I just quickly made. And this is what we're going to brush onto the cauliflower so that the herby crumb sticks to it. And simply whisk that together. In another bowl, we'll make the herby crumb. We're going to start with some fresh, finely chopped herbs. I've gone for parsley and mint, but you could go for chives, you could go for chervil, dill. It's totally up to you. Personally, I think a mix of parsley and chives is a really nice mix, but sadly, I could not get any chives. And then to those herbs, we're going to add some breadcrumbs. I've just got some panko breadcrumbs here. I'm actually also going to add some lemon zest, just to add a little bit of a zing to the herby crust. Just going to add the zest of about ½ a lemon. Season with a touch of salt and some black pepper. And then just mix to combine. Okay, the cauliflower's out of the air fryer and already it's looking incredible. It's got some nice caramelization on it. I can smell the umami richness of that marmite. It just smells insane. We're now going to add the herb crust, and we'll start by just adding on this mayonnaise and Dijon mixture, which is of course going to help the herb and breadcrumb mixture stick to the cauliflower. Get it really nice and coated. Now, I wouldn't usually take it out the air fryer. This is just so that I can show you what I'm doing a bit more easily. That is nice and coated. We can now pack on our herby breadcrumb mix. Now, this can get a little bit messy, but that's just all part of the process. All around, all the sides, get it packed on there, and then we'll get that back into the air fryer, and we're going to fry it until beautifully golden and crispy. I'm just going to do a little drizzle of olive oil just to help make sure they get nice and crispy. Okay, I wish you guys could smell this roasted cauliflower, because it smells absolutely incredible. Golden brown, it's crispy. I can smell that umami marmite, and the herbs are coming through really nicely. Let's get in there and slice it open. Oh yes, that's a good sound. Nice and tender, knife is sliding through perfectly. Oh yeah. That is going to be so delicious. So when I was doing my research into Thanksgiving dinner, Green bean casserole was coming up a lot, so I had to include something similar. That's where this creamy leek and green bean gratin comes in, which if I had to describe in one word, it would be comforting. So let's get going. For the gratin, we're going to heat up a pan and we're going to add a couple tablespoons of olive oil, followed by the sliced onion and the leek. Add in a good pinch of sea salt and then just get it all nice and coated in the olive oil. Also going to add a nice grating of fresh nutmeg. Nutmeg goes really well with creamy sauces and also leek. And then with the same zester, we're going to add a couple cloves of garlic. The leek and onion is now soft and buttery, so we're going to add in our plain flour. If you're gluten-free, you can use corn flour, rice flour, or any other gluten-free flour of your choice. It's simply to thicken the sauce. Just stir that through and let it start to toast a little bit. Then we're going to start by adding vegetable stock and just stir that through to create a nice thick sauce. Next, we're going to gradually add in some plant-based milk. I'm going to go for some soy milk. And this is of course to make it lovely and creamy. Add it a little bit at a time so that you don't get a lumpy sauce. For some additional flavoring, I'm going to add a teaspoon of whole grain mustard, some nutritional yeast for that lovely cheesy, umami and nutty flavor, and a good crack of black pepper. We'll let that simmer for 5, maybe 10 minutes, just to cook out the raw flavor of the plain flour. For some additional protein and fiber, I'm going to add in some butter beans. That is looking incredible. I'm very excited to eat this. You could just enjoy it as it is like this, or if you want to turn it into a gratin, I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Very nearly forgot, we're also going to add in our blanched green beans. They're going to add a really nice vibrancy, freshness and crunch to this creamy dish. So we've got this rather handy dish which actually fits into the air fryer. So I'm going to fill it up with this beautiful creamy leek and beans. And then to top it, I'm going for a nice sprinkling of nutritional yeast. Get a good layer of that on there. Sprinkling of dried thyme, and then some breadcrumbs. Get a good coating of them on there. You may notice a theme of this video, and that is crunchy breadcrumbs essentially. Just makes everything so much better. And then just a quick drizzle of olive oil, and that's going to go into the air fryer or the oven. And there you go, that took no time at all to get beautifully golden and crisp in the air fryer. Very excited to tuck into this. Next up is the stuffing, and I noticed a lot of the American recipes, it was more of a sort of tray bake with large chunks of stale bread in it. Whereas for the English version, we're going to make some stuffing balls which are crispy on the outside and packed with lots of different flavors and textures on the inside. So the first step for these mushroom and thyme stuffing balls is to, of course, fry off the mushrooms. I've just heated up some olive oil and I'm going to add in my diced chestnut mushrooms. Also cooking off one diced onion. I've got a red one, but it can be any type of onion you like. If you're not a fan of mushrooms, then you could do a sort of caramelized onion and sage stuffing balls, or you could add sun-dried tomatoes. They add a really nice sort of chewy texture, which is quite nice. So we'll just cook down these mushrooms, getting rid of all the moisture so that they get nice and caramelized and the flavor really intensifies. I'm using dried thyme, so I'm going to add it in now as it can be quite sort of hard compared to the fresh stuff. So adding it in now gives it time to sort of rehydrate. So the mushrooms are nice and cooked down and starting to get caramelized. I'm going to add a good crack of black pepper. Mushrooms and black pepper are a delicious combination. And just a little pinch of sea salt. And then we'll turn off the heat and we can construct our stuffing balls. So into a large bowl, we're going to add our breadcrumbs. These are mostly fresh breadcrumbs, which is what you want because you want a nice sort of light stuffing ball. We'll then add in our mushrooms and onion. Also adding in some fresh chopped parsley. And then instead of adding vegetable stock, I've just mixed in a little marmite into some boiling water to create a really umami flavor hit there. And then just get in there and mix it up. I'm going to go in with my hands and just sort of massage it together. This is going to release the moisture from the mushrooms and just help just bring it together. I will just add a drizzle of olive oil just to give them a really nice sort of mouthfeel. You don't want this super wet because we're going to be air frying them and we want them to get a little bit crispy on the outside. Okay, so I've actually decided I am going to add a little bit of vegan sausage just to add a little bit more oomph to these stuffing balls. So I'm just going to crumble them up and mix it through. Now all that's left to do is to just roll them out and I'm going to put them straight onto the crisper basket. ready to be air fried. And then I'll just pop them straight into the air fryer. And there you go, there are your crispy and herby stuffing balls, perfect for a Thanksgiving dinner or roast. Okay, so mashed potato was a clear theme when looking up Thanksgiving dinners, but when I told my girlfriend that we were going to have mashed potato instead of roast potato for our roast, she didn't look so impressed. So I'm going to show you how to make some delicious roast potatoes, and we'll probably throw in some parsnips and carrots as well. So the first step for perfectly fluffy and crisp roast potatoes is of course the potato variety. You're going to want a floury variety such as Maris Piper, which is what I'm going to be using. Next step is to cut them all to roughly the same size so that they cook evenly. I'm also adding some parsnips, which are kind of similar to potatoes in that they do go nice and sort of fluffy on the outside when cooked. So just get them roughly the same sort of size. So generally when cooking potatoes, you'd start them in cold water, but in this case, I'm going to start them in boiling water. And this is so that the outside cooks first, and then when we rough it up in a colander, it's going to go nice and fluffy, and then when it gets roasted, it's going to go nice and crispy. My next tip is to cook the potatoes longer than you would expect. I would say at least 10-12 minutes you want to cook them for once they come back to a boil. This is so the outsides get nice and fluffy and crispy when roasted. You'll know the potatoes are ready when you can easily push your nail into them. And we'll leave them to steam dry so that they don't have too much moisture on them when they go into the hot oil. Give these a good shake so that the outsides are almost sort of coated in mashed potato, which is then going to go crispy when roasted. Next roast potato / roast veg tip is to preheat your air fryer or your baking tray with some oil in it so it gets nice and hot before you add in your potatoes. Give them a little shake around to get them coated in the oil and then into the air fryer. Beautifully golden crispy, and if we break one open, really lovely and fluffy inside. And just as they come out the air fryer, a little sprinkle of sea salt is a really nice thing to do. Give them a little toss and those are good to go. Okay, last but not least is the gravy, which in my opinion is probably one of the most important parts of a roast or Thanksgiving dinner. And I've seen a lot of recipes out there that just seem very complicated. And after you've already cooked like 5-6 dishes, I want something a bit simpler. So this is that recipe, and I hope you really enjoy it. So lovely rich gravy. It's going to start just by sauteing 1 onion and 1 bay leaf, and a small pinch of salt just to help bring out the moisture from those onions. So the onion's translucent, and we're just going to zest in 1 clove of garlic. And just cook that out for 30 seconds or so. Next to go in is the plain flour to thicken the gravy. Stir that through and we'll let that cook for a minute or 2, just to start getting rid of the raw flour sort of taste. Then we'll just slowly add in our vegetable stock, stirring all the time. We don't want a lumpy gravy. You could use a whisk here, but as long as you're stirring continuously, then you'll have a nice smooth gravy. Next up, we need to add in our flavor boosters, and I'm gonna go in with some Marmite first. Lovely umami, rich flavor. Touch of balsamic vinegar for a lovely sort of tang and fruitiness. Just a touch of liquid smoke. If you don't want to use a liquid smoke, you could use a touch of smoked paprika. And then we'll let that simmer to thicken and cook out the flour. Also going to add a really good grating of black pepper and some dark soy sauce for even more umami goodness. That's going to give the gravy a really nice dark, rich color. And there you go, you've got a lovely thick and glossy gravy with bags of flavor. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out this video for some more plant-based cooking inspiration.